Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to, I'm not even going to tease Lester about it, but I wondered when I walked in, I said, I know I'm in the proper attire. I'm surprised Senator Castro isn't. And I know it's not Biker Fest today. Even though the Chelos are here, Harley Owners Groups are here. Let me see, make sure I don't miss anybody. I've got the Hogs here, Guam Hogs are here. I think I got everybody. I got Tricks, right? Oh, see? But that's okay, we understand. You're still in the house, Chelo. You're in the house. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask first Mr. Lester Carlson to come forward and have a seat here before I open the public hearing. I'd ask Mr. Ken Leon Guerrero to come forward. I'd ask, I got Mr. Byrne, Edward Byrne, Director DOA. I got Milton, come on up. And I have, yep, and that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 9:00 a.m. The Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, Housing convenes this public hearing. Public hearing notices were given to the media on Thursday, April 4th. Second notice was given on Thursday, April 11th. And for the record, today is April 12th. And the time now is 9:00. Committee will hear and accept testimony, both oral and written, on the following. We first initially started out with 2 nominees. We're now down to 1. And I will brief the people of Guam on the reasons why the other one was withdrawn. But the appointee today is Lester L. Carlson, Jr. As Director of Bureau of Budget and Management Research, term length, serve at the pleasure of the Governor. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues, Senator Therese Terlai and Senator the biker, my fellow biker, even though he's got a smaller bike, Senator Will Castro. Ladies and gentlemen, the general rules for the public hearing is those testifying will be recognized in the order of sign up on the sign-in sheet. Written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes, even though I expect Mr. Carlson to be longer. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide our designated staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. Individuals will be allowed to present oral testimony only once. Once you are done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony, as may be desired by the members of the panel. Proper forum and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for the proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper forum and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and/or may be asked to leave or be escorted from the room. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is not proper decorum and form maintained, you will be removed. You won't be asked. You will be removed. Okay? So bikers, keep the pipes down low. Okay? And when you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name. We will now begin to hear testimonies on the appointee, Lester Carlson, Jr. And I ask Mr. Carlson, you have family members. My aunties are in the room. If you could please first, I'd like you to please identify the family that are present today.
Thank you very much, Senator, Chairman, and Primo. I have my wife, Amaretta, my daughter, Kristen. I have my auntie, Liz, my primo, Evelyn, my primo, Charlie. I have my mother-in-law, Helen Pangilinan. I have our really good friend, Marie De La Rosa. I have members, brothers from the fellowship, as well as Roro from the Hogs, John from Tricks. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make a personal recognition for friends. I'll take care of the staff a little bit later, but my heart is touched. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to also recognize Senator Eileen Yamashita is also present. Good morning, ma'am. And we also have the Director of Revenue and Tax, Daphne Shimsu. Prima. Lester, you also forgot Primo Tim, but that's okay. He's your chief.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I also have my cousin, former Senator Aline Yamashita, as well as two very, very good friends from the Guam Economic Development Authority, Larry Tobis and Mike Cruz.
All right, thank you. We will now begin the hearing testimony. We will start with Mr. Ken Leon Guerrero. Sir.
Thank you very much. I'm Ken Leon Guerrero. I'm here today both as a private citizen and as the spokesman for Guam Citizens for Public Accountability. I have been interacting with Lester Carlson since 2007 in one capacity or another as he's been moving through his government career. And a lot of my friends were surprised to learn that I was going to be testifying in support of him today. And when I asked them why would they be surprised that I'd be testifying in support, and they'd say, you know, we've heard you at testimony and we've heard the two of you talking on the radio and stuff. How could you support him? Well, Lester Carlson is the very model of the perfect, in my opinion, civil servant. He has a unique distinction over the past 6 years. He's the only government employee I've been able to get information out without a FOIA. Anytime I've needed information, no matter what the subject was, from Lester Carlson, he made it possible for me to get the information I needed without having to jump through a lot of hoops, which I can't say for the rest of the agencies that I've had to deal with as Guam, in my role at Guam Citizens for Public Accountability. Lester Carlson never dodges any phone calls. When I get him on the phone, he tells me, Ken, I've only got 10 minutes before I've got a meeting. If this takes longer, let's schedule a time. He returns calls when I do leave messages, and I'm glad to see that that tradition and his service to the community is continuing in this administration the same as it did in the last administration. Because even though we find ourselves often on opposite sides of an issue, it's never been personal. In all of our interactions, he has provided enough information that I've been able to maybe come halfway towards his direction, and at times I've seen him be able to come sort of a little bit towards my direction. But the point is, we need vigorous discussion on government policy, because only through vigorous discussion on government policy does government policy get any better. And in the last 5 years, Lester Carlson has been one of the few government officials that would engage in vigorous discussion on policy. Most of the policymakers I would meet with, they would listen to what I'd have to say, and then they would give the following: I'll take what you have said into consideration. And then that's the end of the meeting. A meeting with Lester Carlson is a give and take situation. It is not a one-way conversation. And it is important that we have passionate discussion on both sides of a topic or an issue. And when we have passionate discussion on both sides, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's right or I'm wrong. What it means is that we are getting viewpoints aired out. We're eliminating areas where there could be misunderstanding, because one thing I don't walk away from a conversation with Lester is a misunderstanding of where he stands. And I'm sure that in the days coming ahead, I will find myself on the opposite side of issues with Lester, but that's okay. We need people, strong advocates on both sides of the many challenging issues that we have before this people, before this body, before this administration. Because it is only with that kind of vigorous discussion are we going to get good policy. And like I said, the first 100 days that he has been with the administration, I haven't had many occasions to talk with him, but I was pleased to see that the few occasions I have had to talk with him, he is still the same person he was when he was in the Calvo Tenorio administration. So I'm looking forward to more vigorous conversations in the days ahead, but I never doubt for a moment that he is putting the best interest of the people of Guam first when he approaches any issue. And so that's why I'm confident in dealing with him as a community advocate, whether we agree or we disagree. I know that at his core, he's putting the people of Guam first. I have seen that in his actions since 2007. Thank you very much. I'm glad I had the opportunity to sit here next to him for a change on a topic we both probably agree on.
Thank you, sir. We will now begin with Mr. Milton, another biker, but he's not in the proper attire, but I understand. He's got to
That's
play
right.
the other role that he gets really paid for.
I have two attire. Good morning. My name is Milton Morinaga, and I'm the Managing Director for Can Corporation in Guam, and also I sit on the board for Guam Business Bureau, and also the board for the Chamber of Commerce in Guam. Half a day to you, and to members of the Committee on General Government Appropriation, and Housing. Thank you for allowing me to submit this testimony to the committee to support Mr. Lester Carlson, appointment to serve as a Director of Bureau of Budget and Management Research, BBMR. I'm confident that he has the necessary expertise to continue in his important role as a Director of BBMR. I've gotten to know Lester over the many years that I have been in Guam, and a positive professional relationship between the two of us has developed over the years. As a representative of a large tourism industry investment in Guam, I appreciate Lester's directness and honesty when discussing government finances and how it may impact our tourism industry and economy as a whole. His keen understanding of symbiosis between the public and private sectors is very important as the government of Guam works to secure stability and prosperity in the coming years. Guam is going through a period of changes, and it is crucial that the government of Guam has the data and information needed to most effectively manage the tax revenues gleaned from Guam's residents and business community. Lester has years of institutional knowledge that we will ensure that this data information is properly gathered, utilized, and he will greatly serve the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration in its efforts to properly manage government resources. I thank you again for this opportunity to provide testimony on his behalf and look forward to hopefully seeing his appointment being confirmed. Jesus Masi.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Byrne.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chairman, Senators, good morning. My name is Edward Byrne, Director of the Department of Administration. I'm appearing before you today to offer testimony in support of Mr. Lester L. Carlson Jr.'s nomination to the position of Director for the Bureau of Budget and Management Research. I've had the honor of working with Lester since I became Director at DOA in February 2018. The budget hearings which followed the enactment of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act required information from both of us regarding the effect on budget and cash flows, and I quickly gained a great respect for his ability to understand and explain a difficult fiscal matter so that everyone could appreciate it. Lester's experience in both budgeting and public finance is invaluable to the smooth running of the fiscal sector of any administration. And by confirming him as Director of BBMR, this legislature can be assured that the complex budget process and control of costs which a budget director must manage is in good hands. Controlling costs is a task carried out by a budget manager and a financial executive within their fiscal disciplines. Lester is highly skilled at his work. He can make an agency director who has just suffered a stringent budget reduction feel as though he or she has just won the lottery. A personal experience, right? All this cost control and budget formation is performed with unfailing courtesy and thorough professionalism. Leicester's experience in public financial operations is an asset to any administration. Governor Leon Guerrero has chosen to reappoint him to BBMR so that his experience and expertise can continue to be useful to her administration. I would commend his appointment to the legislature. I will look forward to working with him again should the legislature choose to confirm his nomination. I hope it does. Thank you, Senators.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. I'd like to also recognize my colleagues that have joined me. We have Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes, ma'am, and Senator Jim Moylan. Primo, Lester, you're next. I'd like to also recognize we also have Mr. Mark Sablon from another biker. I don't know, like I said, I just wondered if there was a bike fest. Maybe one day we need to do that here, down in the legislature. Mr. Carlson.
If I could, sir, the one thing that is interwoven with everybody that's in this room is family. The fellowship, Milton's a member, Mark's a member, even the guys from other clubs we ride. But we ride for a community purpose. All of you senators have seen us at fundraising events, funeral escorts. This is the epitome back here of public service from a very broad spectrum of individuals who love to ride, but more importantly, love to serve. With that, sir, Hafaday, Mr. Chairman, Madam Speaker, Senator Moylan, Senator Castro, Senator Talai. My name is Lester Carlson. I currently serve as a Deputy Director of the Bureau of Budget and Management Research. I present myself before this body today in furtherance of my nomination by Governor Lourdes Leon Guerrero to serve as a Director of the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, BBMR. I'm truly honored at the trust and confidence Governor Leon Guerrero has in me to take the helm officially as the BBMR Director. I've already had the chance, thanks to the Chairman, to acknowledge family and friends. Without the love, without the love and support of people who have collectively contributed to shaping my life, I truly would not be before you and the committee today. I have been with BBMR since February of 2015, serving as Deputy Director, along with several stints as Acting Director. I have led BBMR since May of 2017 after the retirement of former BBMR Director Jose Calvo. So effectively, I have managed BBMR for almost 2 years. During this time, I have worked with the legislature in finalizing the fiscal 18 budget the fiscal 19 budget, and just this past Monday, BBMR, on behalf of Governor Leon Guerrero, submitted the executive budget request for fiscal year 2020. Over the past 3 years, I have strived to be more responsive to the needs of the legislature, specifically with respect to making myself available to senators and staff to discuss policy issues and any number of associated inquiries. This interaction with the legislature extends to the timely submission of fiscal notes, which accompany each piece of proposed policy introduced by members of this body. I have asked my staff to work on fiscal notes upon introduction of each bill in order to try to stay ahead of the process, as opposed to waiting for a request from the Committee on the Chairman of Rules. BBMR's work on fiscal notes demonstrates the intellect and dedication to service our island community, which BBMR, from top to bottom, brings each and every day. To each and every one of my staff here at BBMR, both past and present, I thank you for your devotion to duty and professionalism. Man, was it supposed to be this hard? As Mr. Byrne mentioned earlier, as a direct result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, the government of Guam faced a mid-year fiscal awakening, which had a sudden and adverse impact on fiscal 2018 adopted tax revenues. BBMR took the lead in submitting to the 34th Guam Legislature a fiscal realignment plan in bill form, which addressed increases in revenues and cuts in spending in order to avoid the inability of the government to provide basic services necessary and expected by our community. The impact of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act also resulted in Standard & Poor's and Moody's placing our general obligation and revenue bonds in credit watch with a negative outlook. The foundation of the fiscal realignment plan served as the foundation for the passage of the fiscal 2019 budget. These extended measures were, without a doubt, the primary factor in both Standard & Poor's and Moody's subsequently removing our bonds from credit watch. More recently, BBMR issued a memorandum on January 2nd of this year, placing over $9 million in territorial education facilities funds adopted revenues into reserve as a result of the veto of Bill 373-34, which sought to address the $1 million or more increase in property taxes contained in the fiscal 2019 budget. BBMR, working hand in hand with the Department of Administration, initiated this action in order to ensure fiscal discipline was maintained from both a budget allocation and a cash disbursement perspective. As mentioned by Mr. Byrne, I possess a wealth of institutional knowledge in public finance, having been involved in just about every financing, whether it be a loan or a bond, since 2000. My degree in finance and economics from the University of Guam has prepared me very well to lead these legislatively authorized financings over the years, always with a focus on seeking the best terms in the interest of the people of Guam. I continue to provide guidance and input on economic diversity and tourism expansion via participation in a variety of working groups. I'm a steadfast advocate of the promotion of Guam's economy as a means to enhance the quality of life for our friends and family, both on Guam and the Micronesian area. My relationship with Mr. Morinaga has furthered that ability to be relevant in discussions, and I'm very grateful for not only his friendship, but for our continual dialogue in being able to promote Guam. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I am committed to assisting Governor Leon Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Tenoro's vision to achieve fiscal stability, effectuating meaningful change in the advancement of education, healthcare, public safety, job creation, infrastructure improvement, and the economic expansion of our island in order to provide a brighter future for our families. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. I'm available to answer any questions the committee has relevant to my nomination to the position of Director of the Bureau and Budget Management Research. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lester. I would have now, ma'am, Senator Eileen Yamashita.
Thank you very much, and excusing my not following the directions. I didn't check the right box.
We're good.
Good morning, honorable senators. Senator Marsh Titano, Senator Terlahi, Mr. Chairman, Senator San Agustin, Senator Castro, Senator Moylan, and Madam Speaker Tina Munoz-Barnes. It is with pleasure and pride that I support the confirmation of Mr. Lester Carlson to the directorship of the Department of Bureau of Budget and Management Resources. Lester has the genetics of the San Agustin Leon Guerreros, the natural ability to connect, care, and collaborate. Particularly during this time of our island and the world, these competencies are greatly needed. Lester has the genetics of the Carlsons. He's simply smart. Uncle Les and Auntie Doll simply had the natural intelligence of knowing and understanding. They're smiling from above with love. And we just naturally cry, I guess. And my dad is his godfather, who has been gone for 29 years. Len has served this government for years. The institutional knowledge he brings to the financial health and development of our island and region is invaluable. The leadership is wise to ask him to continue serving. He knows what has happened and what has not happened. He understands the bond market scene. But most importantly, he cares about Guam. He could have stayed in California, but he came home. His leadership does make a difference. As a leader in our community, as a mom, a teacher and a daughter, I believe such leaders like Mr. Lester Carlson will realize the promise of a healthy, happy island community for all of us. All of us. Please support his confirmation. Sijus Maasi. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to also recognize a colleague that have joined us, Senator Kelly Marsh. Lester, warm up the bike next time when you're on your way over, okay, Primo? The rest of the bikers are wondering like, hey, dude, but that's okay, I understand. I would begin with the speaker, if you have any questions you want to pose on the panel.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Chair, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Manana Sijus Hamzutotus. Sorry for my lateness. I was at a meeting up at Adelup, but I had to make sure that I told my primo Les that I'd be here for him. Amaretta, I followed through. I see Auntie Helen in the back. But to all of you here in support of my primo Lester, I will disclose that for the record. I just want to say your experience, not just working with the Leon Guerrero organization and administration, you've been able to work on several administrations. And I want you to know that you coming back home to make a difference, you coming up after all the trials and tribulations that you had to personally endure, and you said you want to continue to do this for this island, I want to say I stand and rise in full support for your confirmation. Mr. Chair, Mr. Carlson and I have worked on several bonding issues when I was the oversight chair of the airport. He working closely with then Senator Eddie Cavo, then Governor Eddie Cavo, and now working in the Leon Guerrero administration. I know your expertise most recently working with making sure that our government employees and their retirees are afforded that opportunity to have the best health policy, but more importantly, to work with both hospitals here, and your expertise in providing that and your leadership. I have to say, Lester is admirable, and not being afraid to stand in the front of a difficult decision and make that decision for the betterment of our residents here. And I want to say thank you for stepping up to the plate, because you could retire like me, and you chose to continue. So I want to say thank you to the family. Thank you for the family for being here, but more importantly, to the bankers from Dunkel and Asidzuas Masi for taking the time to support your fellow writer in this effort to continue to help Guam move forward. Sana Masi, Mr. Chair, and he's got my full support.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now I'm going to stick with the women, the ladies first, okay? Gentlemen, let's start with Senator Kelly Marsh. Senator, do you have anything?
Asidzuas Masi. So I've been reading through the letters of recommendation, and I got to be here long enough to hear a couple of them as well. So Sana Masi to everybody for coming here and for the time that it takes to prepare all of this, think this through, and step up to try to do what's right for the community. So in reading through these and listening to the testimony, I really liked hearing about the directness, people testifying about the honesty. I mean, obviously, those are two extremely important qualities. So those are very good to be hearing about. And I think another good point that was made was we are in a period of change. We've had a lot of switchover from directors to senators, obviously, and the administration as itself. So with that, it is extremely important to have those areas where we have that institutional knowledge to draw upon. And so I think that is a real strength, along with some of the others that have been mentioned. And I just wanted to be able to highlight appreciating that and seeing the value in that. Asidzuas Masi.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Therese. Jerline.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for your testimony and for being here this morning. And of course, Lester, thank you for accepting this job again and for your work over all these years. I know I first met you when you were at GITA, and you were there for very long, I thought. And so I have that kind of experience from your GITA work and your work, of course, when I became a senator, very helpful. But this morning is kind of a morning of surprises for me and understatements, is what I'm finding. Surprise first was when Ken Leon Guerrero was here to support you. I made sure I checked, is he here in support or against? But so, and I'm so very pleased to hear that the reason he's supporting, or of the reasons he's supporting you, especially the responses to requests for information without the need for a FOIA, has become so rare, and I very much appreciate it. I know that the new governor, she said that's going to be what she directs all her agencies, but that's really what we need. We need to make informed decisions too, and so every bit of information that we can get, and the quicker we can get it, that's, I think, a necessity, critical. So I'm very glad to hear that. I was also surprised because there's testimony from your colleagues from GITA that it was you who thought of the idea about the BRAC Commission and or getting the excess land and following that law of how we could get our excess lands back and working with the BRAC Commission. So that was a surprise to me. I didn't know that. So thank you. I acknowledge that fiscal notes have been very much more consistent with your leadership, and so thank you for that, because in the past I was counsel for the legislature for many years, and so many times fiscal notes just did not come in, so they were making those decisions without really having that kind of a knowledge. And of course, your bond experience has been very helpful. Even when you're at BBMR, your bond experience is still helping us. I remember, there was a time last year when we were faced with that fiscal crisis, or maybe 2 times last year, when things were really heated, and I was furious with you because of the way, and you, Mr. Byrne, too, because of the way that the administration had proposed to save, to realign, was pretty much on a non-selective, across-the-board cut. And I just thought we could do better than that, and of course I thought I was very much opposed to the decision to close a fire station and close a police station. It felt, so I'm just hoping that moving forward, right, and I know we're all dealing with what we have, but I'm hoping that going forward, that's going to be the last types of things on the chopping block. And I know that it's your job at BBMR to toe the line, to enforce when we haven't given an agency money. I know it's almost a bad guy job, right? To say, no, we're not going to allow you to spend over this amount at this time, and because our revenues aren't looking promising or aren't looking up to par. So I appreciate that that's the work that you have to do, and it must not be fun all the time. And I was glad to hear Mr. Burns say that you actually have made it pleasant for the agencies who have to get the brunt of that. But so going forward, yes, I hope we're going to also just be able to share information quickly, freely, and ideas. We need your ideas, and of course, yeah, part of those spending cuts that were like across the board was also at the same time that we were forced with choices of you raise tax or you don't fund, your health, or your GMH, or you don't fund so many critical DOE, and so we're just going to all have to work together and really come up with creative solutions. But I think flow of information is really the most important part. So thank you again for the work that you do.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Jim Whalen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Carlson, congratulations on your nomination. Obviously, your job ethics and the work that you've done for the government thus far was recognized by our Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, so that's wonderful. Your experience there and the group of people that you brought with you is extremely impressive. I like that. I like everything I have heard, and I'm very impressed. I think you'll do great work again, and probably even a lot more, and I want to work closely with you throughout my term. The thing I'm really impressed with is that you were working there, and you're willing to come back, so that's a good thing. And you had the compassion to do so. So you're number one there in my book, and I totally support your nomination. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sejus masi para todos hamzu no finatan mizu. Todo membro sia gi net nun Guam Hogs Fellowship employao sia gi BBMR. Thank you so much for coming. Lo antes no betutun hafa punsangan podesti na kandidato po director. Be na senklaro sa leknyesti ni gehilo na kumitea na tifod modestino magaguhu usapago. For what I said basically was before I start, I have to clarify for the public record, although my good chairman called out my attire, I must point it out that I am wearing a collared pressed shirt, closed-toe shoes, and a pair of jeans, Mr. Chairman. Lo estabi sangani hargo lokwi sa hafa na be hutalaika estino franelahu zenginti by hutalaika isinenteko put guiza put estina kilizano. Let me go ahead and start. It's rare that I've known Mr. Carlson for anywhere between 4 to 6 years, depending on who's counting. And I know when he's serious. I like to think I know when he's serious because he called me by my last name as pronounced by almost everyone else, which is Castro. But when we're out on the street and we're riding as fellow bikers, he calls me everything else and never Castro, maybe Castro. So I know he's serious and he actually stayed on script. Mr. Chairman, since he started off in a more formal tone, let me go ahead and state publicly and for the record and for the benefit of my brothers and my sisters here that Mr. Carlson is a consummate professional. He has nearly a dozen awards, is formally educated, has served at GITA and BBMR. This is an important characteristic when you're looking at a hybrid finance manager, not just of public administration, but of public financing. This speaks volumes of the administration's ability to recognize talent, recognize people who are highly qualified, who are willing to serve regardless of partisan affiliation. And so I stand by the governor in her appointment, and I applaud her, and I applaud members of this body for publicly stating their support for Mr. Carlson. I also wanted to say that just yesterday, without mentioning his name, Senator Terlahi, the individual you referenced earlier, shared a concept with me. He said, Senator, there are those with leadership positions. I'm paraphrasing, so he doesn't call me out for quoting him. There are those with leadership positions, and then there are those who lead. And I want to highlight again for the public record that the amount of people in the room from a cross-section of this community, as Senator Moylan accurately expresses, is so impressive. And if you know anything about bikers, particularly the Fellowship organization, there is no hierarchy. It's like herding a bunch of cats. They show up when they want, they leave when they want, and they only congregate around one thing 99.9% of the time, and it's goodness. And today they've gathered around the goodness of your nomination, my brother. So I want to thank you all. Also, you have members of the agency that you lead. You have a representative of a major corporation. You have a representative of a titan of this tourism industry. You have public and federal employees. You have veterans surrounding you. And I thank you for being the leader that you are. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Carlson is a man of very few words, as we all experienced in the 34th Guam legislature, and he took his punches in a very fiscally fragile environment. And yet, to underscore what was mentioned, you've come back. You've returned to serve. Thank you. Sa apago, Mr. Chairman, by iina sa unggan hutaita no ipaket niya. But there are three things that are missing in this packet. Itomtom mo, ihinenggem mo. Sentuna sa sinakandidato po Director, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my statements in terms of his character and his exceptional professional qualifications. Thank you. And I do have another word for Senator Taitigui, if I may. She expresses her regrets, Lester. As you know, she's experienced the death of an immediate member of her family. She has some very poignant technical questions that she would like me to forward, and we could probably discuss that with you at another time. Until then, you have both of our support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There being nobody else that wants to provide any more testimony, Lester, if you remember correctly, after the election, the first thing, I know you didn't tell your wife and your family. I asked you, are you being offered a job downtown? If not, you're working for me. And unfortunately, you're working for downtown. But that's okay, right, Primo? We can always work out the numbers. And I'm happy to see the folks that have come out today to support you. I actually was hoping it wasn't going to get this big, but that's okay. And unfortunately for Senator Castro, all he did was make my committee report take a little bit longer to complete. Sa mufifinu tomorrow na, you know, they have to translate it because somebody may attack us for not translating and writing it correctly. But that's okay. We'll be able to get it done. And you know, you have folks here that are in support of you. And I do look forward to your confirmation this month of April. And if everything works right, you're not deputy no more. You'll be the director. And you'll be easy to grab. And call in. And I say this because we just call you. I got your cell number. And you know, and it was nice when I called you just recently. You told me, Primo, I just picked up my wife and my daughter. I'll call you tomorrow. I said, okay. That's okay. You know, a happy wife is a happy life, Lester, and you need to remind yourself. And all the fellow bikers need to remind themselves of that. But you know, that we have nothing else to, there's no one else that was going to testify. And I'm in support of your confirmation. And I honestly believe that the likelihood is you will be confirmed. I am that confident in that. Your packet will be ready. Even if it's submitted last minute for the floor, it will be ready for session. All right, Mr. Carlson? There being none, the committee will conclude the public hearing for the appointee Lester L. Carlson, Jr. The committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days, actually no later than Monday. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, Housing, and submit it via email, Senator Joe S. Agustin at Gmail. Sizuz Masi for your attendance and participation in today's hearing, and for those at home, thank you for watching. It is now 9:45. Thank you and have a nice day.